The Golden State Warriors just got hit with the worst possible news at the worst possible time. And if you're a Warriors fan, you might want to sit down for this one. Because what's unfolding right now in San Francisco is not just a bad trade report. It is the beginning of the end of something that once felt completely untouchable. The dynasty. The legacy. The era of Stephen Curry. And the clock. It is ticking louder than ever. Let's go. Picture this. It's a warm night in San Francisco. The Chase Center is electric. Stephen Curry is out there doing what Stephen Curry does, knocking down threes from angles that shouldn't even be legal, moving without the ball like a ghost, making the impossible look routine. The crowd is losing their minds. And somewhere in the stands, there are fans who have been watching this man for almost 2 decades, thinking, no, believing, that there's still one more run left. One more title. One more magical Warriors moment. But here's what those fans don't know. What's happening behind closed doors right now is a completely different story. And the reports coming out of the NBA insider world, they are not pretty. In fact, some people are calling it a straight-up disaster. So what is actually going on with the Golden State Warriors? Let's break this down piece by piece. Because to understand what's happening right now, you need to understand how we got here. And trust me, this story has more twists than you think. Go back to the 2025 NBA trade deadline. The Warriors were on a mission. Stephen Curry was still playing at an elite level, and the front office knew, everybody knew, that the window to win was closing fast. They needed to make a move. A real move. A statement move. And they thought they had their guy. Jimmy Butler. The 6-time All-Star, one of the toughest competitors in the entire league. A guy who shows up in big moments when everyone else folds. Golden State traded for him and thought, this is it. This is the missing piece. Curry and Butler together. Defense, toughness, scoring. This is a finals team. But then everything fell apart. In January of 2026, Jimmy Butler tore his ACL. Done. Season over. Just like that, the entire plan the Warriors had built around him, gone. And now, he's sitting on a contract worth $56.8 million next season. He won't be back until late 2026 at the earliest. And he'll be 37 years old when he returns. 37. On a torn ACL recovery. And the Warriors are on the hook for all of it. This wasn't just a bad break. This was a catastrophe that changed everything about what Golden State could do this offseason. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because when a team loses their big star to injury, they have a choice to make. Do they shut it down, rebuild, or do they swing even bigger? The Warriors, they decided to swing bigger. Word started spreading that Golden State had their eyes on 2 of the biggest names available on the entire trade market, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard. 2 of the most dominant players in the NBA. And for a hot second, Warriors fans allowed themselves to dream. Imagine Curry and Giannis. Imagine what that would look like. 2 MVP-level players, one of the greatest coaches in NBA history in Steve Kerr, one of the greatest winning cultures in the game. The Chase Center would be absolutely electric. But then the insider reports started coming in. And what those reporters were saying should have sent a chill down every Warriors fan's spine. Let's start with Giannis. The Greek freak. The 2-time MVP. The player that the Milwaukee Bucks are now apparently, and this is big, officially open to trading. For a team chasing a title, this should be the greatest news in the world. A generational talent, still in his prime, available on the market. This is the kind of moment franchises wait years for. Except, here's the problem. The Warriors are not exactly sitting at the front of the line. Anthony Slater, one of the most plugged-in Warriors reporters in the entire business, went on 95.7 The Game and said something that landed like a punch to the gut. He said, and I'm going to say this slowly so it really hits, the Warriors are not first in line. They are not second in line. They are not even third in line for a Giannis trade. Not first. Not second. Not third. Think about that for a second. The Golden State Warriors, 4 championships, one of the most recognizable brands in all of sports, the team with Stephen Curry, are sitting outside the top 3 in the race for the most coveted player on the market. And why? Why is a franchise this decorated, this respected, being left behind in a bidding war. It comes down to one word: assets. Here's the brutal reality of where the Warriors are right now as a franchise, and it explains everything. When you spend a decade winning, when you're constantly in championship mode, when you're trading future picks to win now, eventually the bill comes due. And for Golden State, that bill is coming due right now, all at once, at the worst possible moment. Teams like Miami, like Boston, like New York, they have young players. They have draft capital. They have the kind of future assets that a rebuilding team like Milwaukee actually wants. Because when the Bucks trade Giannis, they don't want old veterans on big contracts. They want the building blocks of tomorrow. They want picks that could turn into stars. They want young guys who haven't peaked yet. And what can the Warriors offer? Their two most intriguing young players are Brandon Podziemski and Moses Moody. Both are 23 years old, which is great. But neither one of them has averaged more than 14 points per game. When you're trading away Giannis Antetokounmpo, arguably a top 5 player in NBA history, you are expecting more than that back. The Warriors do have first-round picks. They reportedly offered 4 unprotected first-round picks at the February trade deadline, and the Bucks turned them down cold. Turned them down. 4 first-round picks, and Milwaukee said no. That tells you everything about how the market values what Golden State currently has. And here's another layer to this that makes it even more painful. The Warriors reportedly want to keep their number 11 overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft. ESPN's Mark Spears, who is very well sourced, reported that from multiple people inside the organization, they like that pick. They want to hold on to it. So let me get this straight. The Warriors are trying to trade for a player of Giannis's caliber. They're already being told they don't have a top 3 package, and on top of that they don't even want to put their best available asset on the table? That is not how you win a bidding war. That is not how you land a superstar. That is how you end up with nothing. But wait. It gets worse. Remember Kawhi Leonard? The Warriors had him on their radar too. 2-time Finals MVP. Former Defensive Player of the Year. A player who, when healthy, is as good as anyone in the NBA. Golden State reportedly had genuine interest in acquiring him, and there were even whispers that at the trade deadline, they were reasonably close to making something happen. Except close doesn't count. And now the latest report on Kawhi. The LA Clippers are apparently leaning toward extending Leonard. Their own president, Steve Ballmer, reportedly wants to keep him. And according to Clutch Point's Brett Siegel, when teams started pursuing Leonard this offseason, the early indications from Los Angeles were that the Clippers never even seriously considered trading him. They weren't close. The Warriors and everybody else were chasing a player who was never really available. So cross Kawhi off the list. Now let's talk about LeBron James, because his name has been floating around these Warriors conversations too. LeBron is a free agent. He is 41 years old, yes 41, and still playing at a level that embarrasses players half his age. And the idea of LeBron and Curry in the same backcourt, in the twilight of both their careers, trying to chase one more ring together? That's the kind of dream that writes itself into movie scripts. But is it realistic? The honest answer is, nobody really knows yet. And that uncertainty itself is part of the problem for Golden State. Because while they're waiting and hoping and chasing these massive names, time is moving. The summer is ticking away. And every day that passes without a move is a day closer to Stephen Curry's final season. Because here is the most important piece of context in this entire story. Next season is the last year on Stephen Curry's contract. The greatest shooter in basketball history. The man who changed how the game is played. The heartbeat of this entire franchise for the past decade and a half. After next season, he's a free agent. So the Warriors don't just need to make a move. They need to make the right move right now, because they literally cannot afford to waste another year. And then there's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. Draymond Green. Draymond holds a $27 million player option for next season. After the play-in tournament loss to the Phoenix Suns, there was immediate chatter. Is Draymond retiring? Is this the end for him too? And Draymond, being Draymond, addressed it head-on. He's expected to pick up that option. He's not walking away. He's not ready to be done. The organization reportedly still views him as a winning presence on both ends of the floor, and his leadership behind the scenes has apparently been invaluable. But even keeping Draymond creates a problem. With their 6 players under contract already making over $144 million, and Draymond expected to add another $20+ million on top of that, the Warriors have absolutely zero salary cap space this offseason. None. They are operating with their hands tied financially, trying to make a franchise-altering trade while being completely broke in cap room. Does that sound like a team set up to win a bidding war for Giannis Antetokounmpo? No. It sounds like a team that is stuck, desperately wanting to go forward but unable to find the door. Let's take a step back for a moment and really feel the weight of where this franchise is right now. Because this isn't just a bad offseason. This is the collision of time, money, injuries, and opportunity all happening simultaneously. Think about what the Warriors have been through just in the last 18 months. They traded for Jimmy Butler thinking he was the missing piece, torn ACL. They tried to trade for Giannis at the February deadline with a massive 4-pick offer, rejected. They reportedly came close to getting Kawhi Leonard, never a real option. Their star player Stephen Curry missed significant time with injuries this past season. They got eliminated in the play-in tournament by the Phoenix Suns, a team that then got swept out of the first round themselves. And now they are entering an off-season where they're not in the top 3 for any of the major trade targets they're pursuing. This isn't just disappointing. This is a franchise at a crossroads. And the worst part? The exits are becoming harder and harder to find. Here's something I want you to think about. When we talk about dynasty, when we talk about legacy, there's always this idea that the end comes slowly. That you can see it coming from a mile away. That there's some graceful fade-out where everyone gets to say goodbye properly. But that's not really how it works in the NBA. Dynasties don't fade. They collapse. Suddenly. Violently. Like a building that looks perfect on the outside until one day the foundation gives way and the whole thing comes down at once. The Chicago Bulls. The San Antonio Spurs. Even the Showtime Lakers. None of them ended with a championship parade and a thank you speech. They ended with a losing season, a trade that didn't work out, an injury that never healed, a star who aged just a little bit too fast. And then it was over. Is that what's happening in Golden State right now? Maybe. Maybe not. But the warning signs are everywhere. Now here's a question that nobody seems to be asking loudly enough. What happens if the Warriors don't land anybody this summer? If they miss on Giannis, and right now everything points to them missing, and Kawhi stays in LA, and LeBron goes somewhere else, what does next season look like for Golden State? It looks like Stephen Curry, 38 years old, playing alongside Draymond Green, 36 years old, with a Jimmy Butler who might or might not be healthy by the time the season is halfway done, surrounded by role players who are good but not great. And then at the end of that season, Curry's contract is up. And the Warriors will face the most terrifying question a franchise can face. Do we rebuild? Or do we try to hold on? Let me tell you something about Stephen Curry that I think sometimes gets lost in all the basketball conversation. This man changed the sport. Not adjusted it. Not improved it. Changed it. Fundamentally, permanently, irreversibly. Before Curry, the three-point line was a tool. Something you used when you needed to. After Curry, the three-point line became the entire game. Every team in the NBA restructured themselves because of one guy in a blue and gold jersey dribbling around screens in the Bay Area. His championships, 4 of them, came with a roster that was assembled perfectly around his gifts. Klay Thompson next to him. Draymond making the defense elite. Andre Iguodala providing the IQ and the defense. Kevin Durant, for 2 years, making them look unstoppable. It all worked because all the pieces fit together perfectly. And now those pieces are gone. Klay is in Dallas. KD is in Phoenix, or wherever the wind took him. Iguodala is long retired. The roster around Curry has been rebuilt multiple times, and nothing has quite fit the same way since 2022. And with 1 season left on his deal, the Warriors are scrambling to find something, anything, that gives Steph one more legitimate chance at a ring. The play-in loss to Phoenix still stings. And it should. Because think about what that loss actually means. The Warriors, with all their history, all their championships, all their culture, they lost to a Phoenix team that then got swept out of the first round by Oklahoma City. They couldn't even beat the team that was about to get embarrassed. They were worse than a team that wasn't even good enough to win a first-round playoff series. That is the gap between where Golden State is and where they need to be. And this offseason was supposed to be the answer. This was supposed to be the summer where Mike Dunleavy Jr. and the front office came together, made a bold decision, and changed the trajectory of this franchise. But instead of bold decisions, we're getting reports about the Warriors falling behind in trade talks, not wanting to give up their draft pick, and watching other teams line up ahead of them in the bidding. Here's something I find fascinating about how this is all playing out. There's a weird tension at the heart of every decision the Warriors are making right now. On one hand, they know they need to go all in. Curry is 38. The window is not closing, it's already mostly shut. Every day they wait is a day they can't get back. If there's ever a time to mortgage the future, this is it. On the other hand, and this is the other voice in the room, what future do they actually have if they give everything away? Because if they trade 4 first-round picks, and Jimmy Butler, and their young players, and their number 11 pick, and Giannis still ends up in Miami or Boston, then what? Then they have nothing. No Curry on a long-term deal, no young players, no picks. Just Draymond Green at 36 years old and a roster full of minimum contract guys. That is the nightmare scenario. And it is not as far-fetched as it sounds. Let's talk about the money situation more specifically because it really is central to everything. The Warriors are right at the salary cap with their existing commitments. $144.4 million in standard contracts. Another $20+ million for Draymond. They have no cap space. Zero. They can't go out and sign a player in free agency to a big deal. They can only get players through trades. And in trades, the salary has to match. So to get Giannis, who makes massive money, they need to send out massive money. The most logical salary match would be Jimmy Butler's expiring deal. The problem? Butler tore his ACL. Teams don't typically want to take on the risk of an injured 37-year-old, even if that salary comes off the books after 1 year. There's also Kristaps Porzingis in the mix. Big, skilled 7-footer who can stretch the floor. The Warriors just acquired him from Atlanta not long ago. He's heading toward unrestricted free agency, but Golden State has his bird rights, meaning they can go over the cap to re-sign him. Whether they do or don't re-sign Porzingis will apparently dictate a lot of what else they're able to do this summer. And they have barely any second-round picks to throw into deals. Reports indicate they don't have a tradable second-rounder through 2032. No second-rounders for 6 years. When you're trying to sweeten a trade package, the inability to throw in those extra assets matters. Every angle you look at this from, the financial picture for Golden State is messy. Not impossible, but messy. And messiness in a trade war, when other teams have cleaner offers, means you lose. Now I want to take a moment and talk about something that I think captures the sadness of this situation better than any statistic or trade report ever could. Stephen Curry has played 17 seasons in the NBA. 17. He has given the city of San Francisco, this entire Bay Area, a decade and a half of pure basketball joy. He has broken records that people thought were unbreakable. He shot from distances that people thought were impossible. He made shots in moments when nobody else in the history of the sport would have even attempted them. And through all of it, he's been one of the classiest players the game has ever seen. No drama. No trade demands. No public complaints. Just showing up, working hard, performing at an impossibly high level, and making everyone around him better. This man deserves to go out on his own terms. He deserves a proper final chapter. And right now, the franchise is scrambling, desperately, almost frantically, to give him that. But the resources aren't there. The assets aren't compelling enough. The salary cap is maxed out. The timing is as bad as it possibly could be. And that is genuinely heartbreaking. Not just as a sports story. As a human story. Because watching greatness fade without getting a proper ending is one of the most painful things in all of sports. Let me flip this around for a second though. Because I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, and the truth is, the story isn't over yet. The Warriors are still in the Giannis conversation. They're not first, second, or third, but they're still in it. And in NBA trade talks, being in the conversation means anything can happen. Deals fall through. Teams change their minds. Financial complications pop up with other offers. A player who said he wanted to go to Miami suddenly has second thoughts. This is the NBA. Nothing is final until the trade is officially announced and the players are on the plane. And remember, the Warriors were supposedly reasonably close to getting Kawhi Leonard at the trade deadline. What if a similar last-minute scramble happens this summer, but this time it actually works out? What if some other team's deal for Giannis falls apart at the last second and Golden State swoops in? It's a long shot, but it's not zero. And there's also the number 11 pick. A fresh young talent. The 2026 draft is being described as one of the best in years. Maybe the Warriors find their next core piece right there. Maybe they develop someone who becomes a legitimate co-star for the next era of Warriors basketball. Not with Curry, but after Curry. These are the things Warriors fans have to hold on to right now. Because the alternative, believing the dynasty is truly, permanently over, is too painful to sit with for very long. Here is the bigger picture though. Here is what this entire situation really means. Every great era in sports history ends. The Bulls dynasty ended. The Spurs dynasty ended. Even dynasties that felt completely permanent, completely untouchable, eventually ran into the wall of time. Players get older. Contracts expire. The competitive balance of the league shifts. New stars emerge and the power moves somewhere else. What made the Warriors dynasty special, truly special, was that it survived things that should have killed it. They lost Kevin Durant. They lost Klay Thompson to 2 years of serious injuries. They went through a year with no stars and no expectations and somehow stayed competitive. And then they came back and won in 2022, when nobody thought they were capable of it. That 2022 championship was a miracle. Not because of luck, but because of culture. Because of what Steve Kerr built in that locker room. Because of what Curry, Green, and Klay built together over a decade of sweat and sacrifice. They reached down inside themselves and found something that most teams never find, a championship level of collective will. But you can't reach down into that same well forever. Eventually it runs dry. And right now, in May of 2026, we might be watching it run dry in real time. Let's also take a moment to talk about Jonathan Kuminga, because his situation is another layer to this entire mess that doesn't get enough attention. Kuminga has reportedly been at odds with Steve Kerr for basically his entire career. He's been in and out of the rotation. He wanted out during restricted free agency. The Warriors brought him back, late into free agency, almost reluctantly. And GM Mike Dunleavy Jr. said something about Kuminga that you don't usually hear a GM say about one of their own players. When asked about Kuminga's trade demands, Dunleavy said, and this is paraphrasing, that when you make a demand, there needs to actually be a demand on the market. Meaning, Kuminga thinks he's worth more than teams are willing to pay for him. That is a GM essentially saying, out loud, that his own player is overvaluing himself. That is almost unheard of. And what it tells you is that the relationship between Kuminga and this organization is essentially over. They're done with each other. Now it's just a matter of finding the right moment and the right offer to move on. But even moving Kuminga isn't straightforward. Because of his complicated situation, the market for him might not be as hot as the Warriors need it to be. And without a strong Kuminga trade, they lose one of their potential bargaining chips in any bigger deal. Everything is connected. Every problem feeds into the next problem. And the Warriors are trying to solve all of them at the same time. I want you to close your eyes for a second and imagine two possible futures. One is bright. One is dark. And right now, both are equally real. In the bright future, somehow, someway, the Warriors pull off a miracle. The Giannis deal falls into place. Or they find another star. Or the number 11 pick turns into a superstar faster than anyone expected. Curry plays one more magical season, gives everything he has, and rides off into the sunset with one more trophy. And the Chase Center erupts one final time. And Warriors fans get the ending they deserve. In the dark future, the offseason passes without a meaningful addition. Curry plays his final season surrounded by a roster that's good enough to make the playoffs but not good enough to go deep. The Warriors lose in the second round. Or the first round. Or the play-in again. And then Curry's contract expires, and he has a decision to make. And the dynasty, the real, breathtaking, four-championship dynasty, ends not with a roar but with a quiet sigh. Which future do you believe in? Which one feels more real to you? Right now, honestly, based on every report coming out, the dark future is the one that looks more likely. But the Warriors have surprised us before. They have reached into situations that looked completely impossible and pulled out something brilliant. The question is whether they have one more miracle left in them. Before I leave you with this, I want to say something directly. Because this isn't just a story about trade packages and salary caps and draft picks. Those things matter. They're real. But underneath all of it is a human story. It's the story of a player, Stephen Curry, who gave everything he had to one franchise, one city, one fanbase. Who never asked to be traded. Who never made headlines for the wrong reasons. Who just showed up and played basketball at a level that nobody had ever seen before and nobody will probably ever see again. It's the story of a coach, Steve Kerr, who built a culture so strong that it won championships across 4 different roster configurations over more than a decade. Who managed egos and injuries and expectations and somehow kept the whole thing running. It's the story of a franchise that had something rare and precious and real. And now it's watching that thing slowly slip through its fingers, trying desperately to hold on just a little bit longer. The trade reports are the headlines. But the heart of the story is about time. And what happens when there's almost none left? So here's where things stand right now. The Warriors lost to Phoenix in the play-in. Jimmy Butler tore his ACL and won't be back until late 2026. They're not in the top 3 for Giannis. Kawhi probably isn't coming. LeBron is a wild card. They have no salary cap space. Their assets aren't compelling enough. Their young players aren't young enough. Their picks aren't fresh enough. And Curry has 1 year left on his deal. Every single door seems to be half closed. And the Warriors are standing in the hallway trying to figure out which one might still swing open for them. This is a disaster. Right now, in this moment, based on what the reports are saying, it really does look like one. But disasters have a way of resolving themselves. Sometimes into tragedy. Sometimes into triumph. The Warriors need a triumph. Curry deserves a triumph. The only question left is whether this franchise, this proud, accomplished, brilliant franchise, still has one more trick up its sleeve. Stay locked in. Because this offseason is about to tell us everything.